So talk about this. Is this a complete turnaround? And talk about the significance. What does it mean to regulate it? Is it under Title II a public utility?
This is a remarkable victory. It is a true David and Goliath story, except in this instance there are 4 million Davids who contacted the FCC. There are 100,000 more who've been calling members of Congress. And we've turned conventional wisdom on its ear, where everybody thought at the beginning of the year that the phone and cable lobby would simply write this rule and be done with it. That has changed completely. What Chairman Wheeler has done is proposed Title II protections, which are not public utility protections in the sense where he's focused is on the issue of discrimination. And the reason that they call this new media is it's not like old media. It's not like television. It's not like radio. It's not like newspapers. Those are one-way medias. This is a two-way communications media. And the rule that he proposes protects two-way communications. It makes sure that the provider, the carrier of that information, cannot discriminate in any way.
Well, Tim, Verizon released a statement calling FCC Chair Wheeler's proposal counterproductive. It said, quote, the FCC can address any harmful behavior without taking this radical step. And the company warned that heavy regulation of the Internet will create uncertainty and chill investment among the many players.
Well, the irony about Verizon is that this whole process began when Verizon sued the FCC. An earlier rule that was insufficient. It didn't use the Title II authority. The FCC lost that lawsuit and is now proposing Title II, which is the proper solution. Now Verizon is claiming that they want to go back to the old system, the one that they sued for. So Verizon has put forth all sorts of arguments. They've said that it will cripple investment, and then their CFO went before investors and said Title II won't in fact affect investment in any way. So you will be hearing this sort of noise from the phone and cable lobby as February 26th approaches. That is the day of the vote. What Wheeler has done is simply announced his intentions via Wired, PBS, and some other outlets, but we don't really know the fine details of the order.
It seems to me one of the interesting things about this in terms of the public response is that we've now seen over the last decade or so numerous major battles occur over the question of media policy and communications policy in the country, usually not covered by the commercial press. Yet, I'm thinking back to 2002 with the whole major media mergers under Chairman Powell during the Bush administration. 2 million people commented to the FCC opposed to it. Now we've had this 4 million people on the issue of net neutrality. So you're seeing this enormous public movement despite the fact that it's not being, the commercial media are not paying attention to these major policy battles.
Well, there's an explanation for that. Oftentimes the commercial media has a stake in the outcomes of these policy fights, so oftentimes you will find them undercovered. But the public does understand what's at stake here. What's at stake is their ability to connect and communicate without interference from these providers. And it's really this movement for media reform has really picked up steam in the last 5 years. We saw millions of people protesting PIPA and SOPA legislation in 2011. They managed to kill a bill that had very draconian copyright legislation, rules written into the legislation. And now we're fighting for net neutrality. So what is really happening is that the Internet public, is truly a constituency. We are a group of millions of people who come from all different backgrounds who must be dealt with before Congress writes any laws that threaten our rights to connect and communicate.
I want to ask you about the amazing change in Wheeler's position on this, because you know, he's I think the only person ever elected to both the Cable Industry Hall of Fame and the Telecom Industry Hall of Fame. He was a lobbyist for the industry for many years, and yet he has gradually shifted, even perhaps now promulgating a stronger policy than even President Obama was talking about. Can you talk about that shift? And also in his statement, he said that his own experience as an initial entrepreneur when he was starting a small a company back several decades ago showed him the dangers of the cable industry being gatekeepers to the internet. Could you talk about that?
Well, he can certainly draw from that experience. It's interesting with Chairman Wheeler because what usually happens at the FCC is that you're a public servant first, and there's this thing called the revolving door, which then spins you out into jobs and industry. The person who's the top lobbyist for the National Cable and Telecommunications Association is a former chairman, Michael Powell, who you probably remember from those fights in 2003. And Wheeler is at the end of his career. He's a very dedicated Obama supporter. He was appointed by the president. He raised money for President Obama's elections, for his campaigns. And so he feels, I think, an allegiance both to Obama. He's received a lot of pressure from the public. We've kind of narrowed his options for him, and he's finally come to a point of realization that Title II is actually the best solution.
And 4 million responses on the FCC website, that's more than any response to any government agency in history.
Yes, this has been a remarkable mobilization, and it's not just groups like Free Press, but there are groups Demand Progress, Fight for the Future, Color of Change, that really cover the political spectrum, that have gone out to their constituents and engaged them in this process. And they're still very engaged. People should really have reason to celebrate today.